Diana Furchtgott-Roth is with us. Diana, the price of oil is down today because we have relaxed sanctions on Venezuelan oil. So oil is down. But in the event of a wider war, which I think now looks probable, what happens to the price of oil and what impact does that have on us, the markets and the global economy?
Well, I think that what this war has shown us is, first of all, surprises happen. And secondly, that we need to be self-reliant. And that means that we need to be producing our own oil. We don't want to be going to Venezuela begging bowl in hand.
Exactly.
Or Saudi Arabia begging bowl in hand. And it's time for President Biden to roll back his war on domestic oil, which he has.
Diana,
we're having a war on domestic oil.
In all sense of reality, he's not going to do that.
Well, no one would have said that he built a border wall. No one said he was going to announce a wall on the border. But this would help him politically, because right now he has a divide in his faction. He has a divide between the blues and the greens. Yep. So there's the green environmentalists and the blue-collar workers. He's been favoring the greens, but not the blues. And so the price of electricity is up. The price of gasoline is up. The prices of appliances are up because he wants to outlaw, for example, gas stoves, dishwashers that use a lot of water, cars that people like to drive, like F-150s, in favor of electric vehicles that people don't want to drive. So it would help him going into an election year. And not that I, an economist, want to be giving advice to President Biden, but I know what my friends say. I know what everybody thinks. Yep. And everybody thinks prices are too high. Price of gasoline is too high. And they want something done about it. So if he just said, all right, we're going to approve these leases sooner. We're going to approve the pipeline sooner. I'm not going to ask the Securities and Exchange Commission to penalize companies because of the investments they make in fossil fuels. We're not going to penalize banks for the loans they make. He would say the Middle East war...
because he's not going to do it.
The Middle East war is a perfect excuse.
Put your economist hat back on again.
Yeah.
Let's suppose it is a broader war, and Israel or the United States goes after Iran and their oil facilities. The price of oil could easily hit $100 a barrel. I know he was speculating here, but if it hits $100, $110, $120 a barrel, what impact on inflation in America and the global economy?
Well, it has hit $100 a barrel in the past. And of course, if it went to 100, 120, it would have vast implications. But we are the world's largest producer of oil and natural gas. There's a presidential election about a year from now. If that happened, he would not be able to keep office. Right. We do have the power here, unlike in 1973, to produce enough oil to sway the global prices of oil. We did not have that power before.
I'm smiling because that is your line. You want to expand America's domestic oil production. And I keep saying, there's no way he's going to do that.
Well, if there's no way he's going to do that, Stuart, he's going to lose office, and then the next person who comes in is going to do that. The biggest changes are going to be between a Republican president and a Democrat president is going to be in energy production, approval of leases, approval of pipelines, and just like between Reagan and President Carter. I remember waiting in lines to get gasoline.
Yeah,
well, when President Reagan was elected, he took the oil caps off, and all those lines went away.
Look, thanks very much for being with us, Diana. I'm not a gambling man, but I would have a bet with you that he is not going to expand domestic oil production. And you wouldn't take the bet, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
We don't gamble on television.
Because he does want to be re-elected.
Well said. Diana Furchtgott-Roth, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Wonderful to be with you.
Thank you, ma'am.